Let's talk a little bit about that title that I don't know if you put on yourself or the logo that you've curated, right? The recovering perfectionist. Talk a little bit about that. I really want to dive into that because I want to know, talk about being a perfectionist, talk about the steps that you're taking to recover from that and
Hmm.
why you feel that is necessary. Because again, I don't know if I completely see the term perfectionist as a negative connotation. There's definitely positive to that. But talk to us a little bit about being a recovering perfectionist.
All right, so I'll totally agree first because I've talked about being a recovering perfectionist. It was just something I put when I started this channel. I called myself a number of different things in my bio, but one of them was a recovering perfectionist, and it's this thing of when it becomes limiting to what you're trying to do and becomes like a barrier basically that's going to stop you going that last little step of actually putting something out into the world and finishing what you've started, really not something that's a barrier to starting. But I'll have to totally agree that perfectionism is something that also drives really good results in some areas of life as well. And if you're working for clients and things like that, and the roles that I've had previously, I've always felt like things need to be perfect. So if you're building somebody their dream house, you don't want to say, "Oh, it's all right." It's
It's
more or less
close.
okay.
Yeah.
It's got to be perfect in my
Right.
my view. And we haven't always achieved that, but we've always strived for that when we were, building houses for people or designing houses. And the same sort of thing with if you're designing, an algorithmic trading model, you don't want it to be like more or less okay. It's
Right.
got to either work or it doesn't. And so I've always felt that in every role that I've had, work wise, that there needs to be that level of perfection. And so having that sort of thing that's striving for that is also something that's driven great results. But it's when it becomes this sort of barrier to creativity and stopping you from doing what you're doing, or becomes too much of
Mm.
a time sink. So it doesn't necessarily always stop you getting stuff out, but it can actually distract from like other things that you need to do. So sweating over the odd pixel here or there, I've gone and completely redone graphics before that I've been working on because there's just something not quite right that
Right.
almost nobody would have noticed. And I'm the worst person to actually have as a client when if I've got somebody to design a website for me or do something for me. We had some stuff where we had a company doing it, and I've just got this. It's a bit of a freakish eye, really, that I can just spot things that are off, and it comes from checking houses. So, like when you're
Mm.
doing snagging lists and things like that, walking around a house, I could walk into the house, and all of the imperfections just jump out at me.
Wow.
And it's the same with graphics and things like that. So, I spot these things. The contractors in the construction business always used to be like a bit on edge when I'd walk in because I'd just walk into the room and I'd spot things that were, oh, that's 5 millimeters off. And I was also coming from when you're designing really fine engineering sort of things, you work into tolerances of thousandths of an inch, for example. You don't necessarily want thousandth of an inch to transfer over into building a big house
Makes sense. Yeah. No, it makes
because it,
sense.
it doesn't matter. But it's, yeah, I'm quite finicky like that. And so
Again,
it can be limiting.
but again, when you think about it, and we won't go into all of them, some of the past professional experiences that you've had, you had to be that finite
That's
and
it.
that particular in terms of things that you did. Else,
Yeah.
catastrophic issues could erupt.